Welcome back to another episode of the Backlog Breakdown, a video game podcast where we're seeking to encourage and equip the church to engage the medium of video games wisely and responsibly. I'm one of your hosts, Josh, and with me today is my co-host, my friend, my brother in Christ, Nate. How you doing, Nate?
My brain has been taken over by a paperclip making machine.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Well, I don't even know how to respond to that.
This is Mark's fault, and I love him dearly, but he must be held. He must be made to pay.
Mark,
how could you do this to me, Mark?
I did not hit her. Oh, hi,
Mark. I did not.
I did not. Don't recommend that. I hope you don't know where that comes from. I hope you've never seen that. No, actually, I think even if you know where it comes from, I hope you've never seen the movie because I know there's issues with the movie itself. Anyways, we're not going to.
There's a certain person that would make them want to watch the movie more. You know that, right? Like you say, like don't go watch this. Like famously, like sometimes I'm a bit of a contrarian. And so when people are like, you shouldn't like X, Y, or Z. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm going to like it even harder now.
Yeah. Like Steve Carell himself or Michael Scott, you know, yeah. Anyways, instead of just referencing other things, how about we move along, my friend, and we start off our episodes by talking about our backlog reports. What we have been, not just what we've been playing, but what we finished. Really, we just, before we tackle our main topic, we've got our backlog to look back at because we are the Backlog Breakdown. And for my report, I really have not finished anything. I'm still playing Octopath Traveler 2. It's a big, long game. I'm not going to be done with it for quite a while. I actually haven't put as much time into it lately as I want to because I do really enjoy the game. I like playing it, but it's going to be quite a while before I'm done with this one. So I'll probably be talking about it for the next couple episodes, just how that goes. I did, however, pick up a game. I mentioned it on the phone call, but I did buy the Dragon Quest 3. HD 2D remake, and so that gives me a +1 for my score. But outside of that, I'm stoked to play that one eventually, probably next year when it officially hits the backlog in terms of the beatdown. But really, that's all that I have been up to. So that changes my score. It was at -7. Now it is at -6 for the year so far, and that's really all that I have to report on. So not too much progress on the backlog, just a little bit. How about you?
Pretty much the same, kind of like little to no movement.
Octopath?
And no, just, I was like, like generally speaking, like
8 different directions.
You're going in 8 different directions. I'm trying to move in one that is forward.
Sorry.
No, but just playing still Destiny 2. Like, we talked about that in the phone call a little bit. That's just sort of like, put some hours into that over the last couple of weeks. And then like a little bit of Returnal, some Tunic. Yeah, I'm enjoying like Returnal's great. It's like, that's kind of like, it's a very, very gamey video game. Housemark, just every time but you have to kind of like lock in. Like you have to you can't do it in 15-minute bursts. Like it's like you got to sit down for an hour or two and sort of like kind of like lock in. Tunic, sort of comparable to that. Is that it's just, it requires it doesn't really lend itself to short play cycles. So but yeah, that's kind of that's all I've been playing. But and I haven't beaten anything because I've been kind of just working a lot lately, and it's summertime. And so, I mean, just tired and hot, and we kind of got like a bunch of stuff going on, and yeah. But yeah, uh, but yeah, I did pick something up. It's a game called I'm gonna
Oh,
just it's like one of those things. I bought it for co-op potential.
okay.
Parker had he brought it up as like something that we're like potentially. I think it's got 3-man co-op. So me, Deuce, and him could all sort of play it. But it's called Dead Zone Rogue, and
Yeah.
it's like a first person
Hmm.
roguelite sort of thing. And yeah, it was like $12, and I was able to redeem some of my points from my PlayStation credit card to get $15 in credit. And so then I bought that game. So I
Nice.
take a +1 because it's an acquisition, but when I play it, it will be a big old goose egg.
There you
Oh my goodness, this is real bad. I was like,
go.
you were like, hey, should we record? And I was like, I'm not that tired. And then like we talked for a little bit longer, and now I'm already yawning.
Oh no.
And I'm that like I'm gonna try to be more animated, because I know that sometimes like I just kind of like I sit back here and I'm just like bored. Nate is bored. Well, I personally hold you responsible for that. It's like you should try
Mm,
to bore me less. Um,
okay. I'll
trying
make note of that. You
to.
know. We'll
When
see.
I'm tired, I'm mean, and it's like it's not. I don't even try. I just kind of default to it. Anyways, but yeah, that puts me at a +1 for my beatdown score. So yeah, that's. And if you are saying, hey, what are all the numbers about? Like if this is like your first time listening to the breakdown, basically we have a metagame that we run all year. It's called the Backlog Beatdown. The TLDR is play games. You sort of knock games off the backlog, and you take a negative point. And there's some variation on that, like a little bit of like nuance. Um, Buy games, add to the pile, kind of thing. It's
Yep.
basically, and it's meant to incentivize you to play stuff you already own, hence like backlog. But anyways, if
Mm.
that sounds at all like you're interested in that at all, like feel free to like go over and check us, like reach out to us, uh jump in the Discord, sort of like, yeah, we have the rules there and you can check them out. It's cool, it's fun. It's like yeah, it can be. Yeah, mileage
Yeah,
may
we
vary.
have a good time with it. It
We
it
enjoy it.
helps me, yeah,
And
focus on my backlog. And
yeah,
what better time to focus on your backlog than right now? Am I right?
in the words of Shia Lebeouf, what are you waiting for? Do it now.
Do it.
Don't let your dreams be
Do
dreams.
it.
Do it. Do it. Just
Do it
do it.
now. Do it now.
Do it
Beat
now.
down that backlog. Play that stack of games that you've had sitting there on your desk, in your basement, on your Steam library. Go play it. Go beat it down.
On your
Okay?
PS5 hard drive.
Yeah. Yeah. Wherever it might exist. Those are the games that you ought to be playing right now. And that's actually what we wanted to talk about for today's episode, is why right now is probably the best time to focus on your backlog. There's a lot going on in the world. A lot of the times there's a lot of negative press and negative things going on. And there always will be, because it drums up, so because people are bored, like Nate might be right now. But because of that boredom, people like to stir the pot, and there might be some negative things going on. We wanted to, instead of going negative, skew positive, while we acknowledge that there are lots of issues and problems swirling around the video game space right now. I think it actually, we wanted to talk about how we can intentionally take this moment in time. Yes, look at some of the trends, maybe negative trends that are going on, so that we can say, okay, what should we do now? And actually present why now is actually probably one of the best times to focus on that stack of games, to beat down that backlog that you have. So, um, Nate, how do you want to kick us off in our conversation so far?
Well, there are a couple things, and I'm just pulling some of these threads together now. And so
Mhm.
I think like one of it is just seasonally. Like this is the summer, so my wife is a teacher
Mm.
and she has time off. And now for me, it doesn't mean much. And actually, I'm working more than because like people are off on vacation. I'm on the overtime list and all that
'Kay.
stuff. So So I was kind of thinking seasonally, like in some ways, like, it's kind of like it's a backlog summer kind of thing. And for some people that might be applicable.
Mhm.
But then I'm glad that kind of you phrased it the way you did, because I kind the other day I jumped into the Discord and the voice chat, and a couple of the patrons sort of jumped in, and a couple of the listeners jumped in, and we had some conversations. Actually, the bite size, the very beefy bite size that I recorded with Turkey was actually born out of conversation that he and I had in there at the time.
Mhm.
And actually some of it was like Spike, aka Fake Nate, and I were talking, and he kind of like we were talking because like and you and I were talking about this a little bit ago about just sort of how like I'm sort of very just like fatigued with industry news and just like the news cycle and all that
'Kay.
stuff. And we're talking about like ways that you could just sort of, turn that and sort of like shift your focus. Because I think like if you're looking at a lot of like current events, it is very discouraging. Like, and even if you're trying to be
Mhm.
hopeful about those things, like it's just like lots of layoffs, lots of downsizing, lots of like
Mhm.
decisions from companies that just like are really pretty distressing. There's a lot of stuff that's sort of going on in the background that, and just the state of the world is pretty like screwy and kind of jacked up. And it's like, yeah, you can kind of get like bummed out. But, and so it's like, there is kind of like some of this is as an answer to just instead of focusing on all the things that could be wrong, it's like,
Mhm.
I guess it's like they started this whole like chain of processes. And I actually like part of it is that like, and even why we do this is that one of the pretty consistent sort of problems with games enthusiasm is that you sort of move into this sort of like keeping up with the hype train, and they almost rely
Sure.
on sort of a dissatisfaction, like
Yeah.
the industry actually wants to kind of cultivate, just like any industry, just like all advertising, what it really does is it wants to cultivate discontentment in your life. It wants to tell you that your
Mhm.
life would be better if you had X, Y, and Z. And actually, as a way to cultivate contentment, like we're kind of looking at you and saying, like, actually, like instead of worrying about like even sort of you and I just we spent a little bit like spoilers, like if hey, like we do the bro hang, all that other stuff, like right. Um, but we were doing a bro hang, and one of the things we talked about was like the PS6, and just like I think like there's a lot of discontent, like it's again not trying to weigh in rehash that conversation, but like
Yeah.
it's not a great decision. But like one of the things it's doing is actually it's breeding discontentment. Like people are kind of like they're upset by like what they think they won't have, instead of looking at what they do like what is in front of them and what they do have. It's kind of like this
Mhm.
like, and I just think it's interesting that like the in a way, like we've kind of been sitting on sort of a bit of a remedy for some of this stuff, where it's like,
Mhm.
as like, as sort of we do like this whole, like, we're trying to equip the church to engage wisely and well with the medium, right? And part of that is like, and sometimes like, we position it as like a stewardship thing or whatever, but it's like, yeah, anyways,
Yeah.
like all of it is like, I've just kind of been like, actually, this is a great way to like kind of like cultivate and foster contentment in your life by sort of engaging
Mm.
a little bit of discipline. And I think like the other side of it is though, like, and you have some of this written down in notes, is that now more so than probably other times, especially in recent history, like gaming's in sort of like a weird spot where it's like it's getting
Yeah.
more expensive. There's a lot of
Mhm.
uncertainty as to like what the next generation is going to look like, how, and so it's like, again, instead of like looking at those things and kind of like letting the discontentment, like the desire for more, that almost, instead of like, fostering a spirit of covetousness, like we can be fostering spirits of contentedness by just sort of saying
Mhm.
like, yeah, but yeah. So that, yeah, all that being
That's
said,
No, I think that's great too. Even just focusing or framing the entire discussion around contentment is great. Our podcast is called the Backlog Breakdown, and so we want to break down, the things that in our backlog of games. Not only do we want to break down the backlog, but we want to talk about that, the breakdown in the sense of really pick it apart and be intentional about these things, and not just get caught up in the latest and the greatest, because I do think the kind of the industry just kind of incentivizes the latest and greatest. That's what they push towards you, because that's what they're making money off of. Um, and I say latest and greatest, I really just mean latest, because it might not be the greatest. And so I think that's something else that we can acknowledge as we continue forward with this discussion as well. But love
and
that framing of contentment. Yep.
and it's not just the industry. I think like the culture as a general rule, like there's
Hmm.
this desperate need to like be relevant, to stay in, like to be part of the conversation. Like it's like I need to play this new game so I can be part of the conversation, like in online
Mm,
spaces or whatever. And it's just like, yeah, like, dude, like that keeping up with the Joneses again. It's just like your life. It's sort of this lie. It's like your life would be better with X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's not a lie. Maybe
mhm.
it would be better with that thing. I don't know. But it's like, especially in light of video games, like these aren't non-essential. These are non-essential things. So it's kind of
Right.
like, yeah, it's like maybe there's a certain quality where like it would make things a little bit better. But yeah,
Sure.
I've just, like I said, it's kind of like one of those things where in talking to Spike, I was like, he kind of like teed off some of this for me, because we were talking like, and I'm gonna sort of like carve out some time to probably uh, drop a bite sized sort of talking about some of his ideas. But like I was
Okay.
like for me, it kind of like I said, sort of put me down this path. And also I picked this because like instead of having to play a game to talk about, we could just talk about a topic. You just got back from vacation,
Mhm.
and yeah, I just figured this one we should kind of be
Good
easy
timing.
breezy, and we could, you know, but yeah. So that's why I picked this, and like I said, I do think like now economically with all the uncertainty and the like craziness, like it just makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and so let's go there for a second. Again, not to skew negative, because we are looking for contentment in all of this. But I think there is an acknowledgement that needs to be made of where we are. So you mentioned kind of economically where we are. RAM prices and memory prices have shot up because of supposedly because of the advancement of AI and data centers buying out these components and things like that. Anyways, trickle down effect into other consumer goods, because it's harder to get a hold of these things. And we see this in a number of different ways. We see this in current gen consoles all getting price increases, some of which are multiple price increases. We see this even in handheld PCs that have gone up almost 50% in prices. The Steam
Hmm.
Deck is now, just it seems to me like astronomically high prices, but things that inflation is kind of caught up with us. Well, the inflation is actually another piece of it,
Yeah, I was gonna
but
say inflation is a
components.
critical part of this as well. But then yeah, the
Mhm,
individual components have gone uh like the whole like the AI chokehold on, again,
mhm.
RAM and processors is just kind of like, yeah.
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 And it's making things difficult for, your average consumer. And I say difficult, I'm still amazed at how much I'll say just as Americans, prioritize luxury and entertainment. and how expensive consoles still seem to sell really well. Um, what I'll present is should we be buying them at these premium prices? I do think the price increases at least causes a little bit more of a question. You know, it again, trying to skew positive here, it can create a little bit more friction,
Mhm.
as you go to the store and see the rising cost of these things and inevitably the rising costs of games as well. We've talked about variable pricing models and things like that, some potentially good things there, but also gaming is just gotten more expensive.
Mm.
Again, we've talked about it for a number of different reasons. Part of that's inflation, part of that is correction. Okay, so it's not purely negative. We're not trying to say that it's negative. We're just looking at the landscape of gaming right now, and things are really expensive. You looked like you were going to say something.
Well, and you kind of like you said that like I actually frame that in some ways as a bit of a positive because I think like
Hmm.
that extra friction sort of actually encourages people to look at games like and I know this is probably kind of unpopular because I think one of the things is
Hmm.
like one of the strengths of video games as a medium has historically been its affordability. But, like, I think
Hmm.
that sort of that access sort of breeds entitlement, and
Hmm.
entitlement sort of breeds a lack of mindfulness in the sense that, like, it's kind of just, like, keep me entertained, and it's like it's there's not a lot of discernment there. So it's kind of like,
Hmm.
in a way, like, by games being a little bit more expensive, it moves it a little bit more into a bit of a luxury expense
Hmm.
versus where it's like I think when games were cheaper, as a general rule, and and it's they still go on sale and all that other stuff, but like it's
Right.
like $50, $60, $70, like it's sort of like as you kind of move up that chain, and the more like it's like the heart, especially with the fact that like your dollars and my dollars, they're compromised and they just don't like I did a bit of a grocery run today, dude. I bought like
Hmm.
some canned goods, a couple bags of coffee, a bag of chips, like some like little dessert cup. It was like it wasn't tons of stuff. And I walked out of
Hmm.
Walmart for like $80 and I wanted to like throw up in my
Yep.
mouth. Like I was just like, ugh.
Hmm.
Like, it's like it's just it's tough. And
Yeah.
so, like I said, I'm not trying to I don't want to sound like a snob, but I actually do think like the fact that like these are a little more inaccessible, that it is a little more expensive, it actually forces people to be a little bit more mindful. And I think that's
Right.
a good thing. Like I think people paying
Yeah.
attention is a good thing, you know,
Yeah.
to how they're spending their
Yeah.
money and how they're spending their time.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah, yeah, there's the time component as well. That's definitely a part of it. I think it is one of those kind of byproducts, but I think it is a positive thing to be more mindful of, yeah, how we're spending our money and whether or not the things that we're engaging with are worth our money. You had mentioned this the earlier, when you were talking about, just having a ton of different games and well, really it's about being more mindful and intentional with the things that you engage. I think a simple illustration of this is if I gave you a box of 20 games, like you wouldn't pick out one and play it through to the end and like see really try and get the most out of one of the games. You would probably pop in like five or six, like alternate between a bunch of them to try them out to see which ones
Yeah.
you like, and it wouldn't just having access to a lot more. I'm I'm not saying devalues in the sense of actual value of the thing, but it does make it feel
Mhm.
not as valuable than if I were to just hand you a game. Say like this is a great game, you should play this. You'd probably focus on
It's
it a
it's
bit
kind of
more.
like it's that's actually like, that's actually kind of one of the trickle down effects of like what Game Pass did. as a service, because it's like,
Mhm.
it's the best value in gaming, and you pay like $20 a month, or it's I don't know how much it is now, but like $10 a month,
Sure.
whatever. And it's like, and you can have access to all these games. And then what they found is like people weren't beating more games. They were just dabbling. Like they were like,
Yeah.
they played a little bit
Yeah.
here, they played a little bit over there. And it's kind of like, so they weren't engaging on a deep level. And I think that kind of just like, for me, there's a bit of a connection to the fact that like you and I, like we've taken inventory at various times of our backlog, and
Mhm.
they are substantial. That's like,
Yes.
it's like hundreds of
Yeah, bottom
games,
line, yeah. Mhm.
hundreds of games. And that's like, and that's even before, like, that's even after I've sort of applied the filters. Like, what am I like out of all the games that I own or have rights to, or whatever, however you want to say it, like, what am I actually interested in playing? And what am I
Mhm.
likely to play? And it's still hundreds of games. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think and I don't, especially for people who are going to be listening to this show, like, or watching us or whatever, like, that's not uncommon. And it
Mhm.
is kind of like one of those things where it's like, and I think that that's actually, and sort of even again, why we started this whole project years ago, was like, it was kind of tied to the backlog at the time, backlog golf, or the backlog book club Facebook group or whatever. But
Yep.
it was about sort of encouraging people to play what they already own, because like 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, I had a massive backlog, and it has done nothing but
Mhm.
grow. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I might play a good chunk of my games, but like, I'm always kind of like adding to the pile. That's like, even this year, I
Mhm.
like, I was like, no, like, we're gonna like last year was like, we're gonna get to like -10. And it's like, and then I got to -10 and I bought a bunch of stuff, and it's like this year I was like,
Mhm.
I'm not
Yeah.
going to spend, like, I'll spend gift cards or birthday money, but I'm not going to spend like money. And it's like, even here, like this year, like where I haven't been spending like anything outside of like birthday money, like I've still like, I'm still at a +1 for the year. We're in July at this point in time. Like,
Mhm.
and I have been playing games. And it's I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? Where it's like, listen,
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
this is relevant in a way that I think, like, that a lot of people don't think about. Like, and now there are
Mhm.
some consumers, like, there's some people who like, they play the same half dozen games over and over and over and over again.
Right.
I'm looking at you, Sonic fans. Um, yeah, or Paul, uh, you know, um, but on the other side of that, there are also, like, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, like, I play Destiny too. And it's like, and I've got over 1,000 hours just on my PlayStation 5 in that game. So it's like there's that. But it's, yeah, there's just like, I think what I'm saying is like, in some ways, like, there's really no reason to keep adding to the pile. And I think in a lot of ways, when we are adding to the pile, we're adding to it unnecessarily. And so it is kind of like,
Mhm.
dude, like, yeah. So it's like hundreds of games. Again, hundreds of games. And I don't think, and I think
Mhm.
that's the thing. It's like, I don't think we're alone in that. I don't think everybody is like that.
Yeah.
Like, friend of the show, Micah Gear Solid, like, does not really have a backlog. Like, he buys games that he
Mhm.
wants to play, he plays through them, and he kind of like moves on. And he doesn't
Yep.
have tons of sort of like stuff that he's just never gotten around to. Whereas like people like you or me, or I don't know, Wesley's a
Other
wizard.
collectors.
Like other
Mhm.
collectors, or even just sort of like enthusiasts who are oriented towards more of a like, yeah, like Bergen. I'm thinking of Bergen's probably got like easily hundreds of games, easily.
Mhm.
If he doesn't, I will be shocked, and I'll probably call him a
Mhm.
liar. But that's mostly because he's Canadian. Um, and can't be trusted.
I know he does play a lot of games though, so I don't know about the size of his backlog in particular, but yes. Yeah, I assume
Yeah.
he owns a bunch of games because he knows.
Yeah.
And that, so man, I don't mean to completely veer us away from that, but I do think there is something special about having older games that have stood the test of time, and focusing on those. So something that we've bumped up against many times because we follow, video game news and what the latest and greatest kind of games are. One, there's just kind of the hype cycle of anything. Anytime anything's released, you're going to get some highly motivated people talking about it, whether that's positively or whether, oh man, this game is just a pile of garbage. Um, but something that it does too immediately after you play a game, and because you're investing a bunch of time into it, is what we have called recency bias. It's hard to really tell if a game is going to withstand the test of time immediately after you play it, because you could think of it. I know for myself, like I was pretty high on Echoes of Wisdom, recently played through that. And am I going to think as fondly about that game, in a year as I do right now because I just came off playing it? That recency bias kind of subsides. And yes, there's also the flip side of that is kind of viewing things with nostalgia. That's a whole other topic.
Well,
But I think, yep.
I was going to say, even with the recency bias, though, what happens is that what I found is that very few games live up to the hype 6 months to a year down the road. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I like this a lot, but it was not nearly as revelatory as it felt when I first played it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's some of what you're getting at too.
Yeah. And I think backlog games uniquely, because you don't have that recency bias kind of in general, with other people playing it or things, you're not getting caught up in those types of things. I think it helps us look at things more objectively. And one of the things, we talk about doing about with this podcast is that we want to engage with this medium wisely and responsibly, encourage other people to do the same, and take a look. Obviously, video games are largely subjective, but there are objective elements, storytelling, themes, things like that we can dig into as well. Even gameplay and things like that. But with that distance, not being caught up with hype or recency and things like that, I think we can actually look at these games more objective, and even viewing games as art rather than as a piece of art that you can engage with. And so really looking at your backlog and seeing what are the games that have stood the test of time, that are highly regarded, what were things like when it was released, how historically important for the medium was this game? Did it even, break into pop culture in general? Questions like this. Does the story stand the test of time? Does the storytelling, the way that it's being told in this medium, stand the test of time? I think these are things that, yes, you can ask of a new game, but I think particularly with your backlog, you're able to kind of see those diamonds, or the cream rises to the top, right? And so it's
Oh yeah, brother. I'm gonna tell you, I'm like the cream of the crop, and I'm gonna rise to the top. Sorry, man. Dude, you said it, and it just like that's like just like Macho Man Randy
That's what's
Savage.
there.
That like with the creamer, just no. Sorry.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I just think that's something uniquely that we can do as we look back on video games, and particularly, I mean, your backlog is going to be games that are older in general.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a really great point too, though, is that like you're not gonna it sort of removes some of the desperation again to like sort of keep up with the conversation to stay relevant. And it does allow you to enter that space where it's like, yeah, I can just kind of play this without expectation or, unnecessary expectation or burden, where
Mhm.
it's like I can sort of go through this and I can engage with this. It is one of those things where it's like, yeah, a lot of times the question is, are we playing games? Are we consuming them? Are we kind of like just like it's not, and it's not even about like whether or not you're consuming it, but it's the way that you're consuming it. It's like,
Yeah.
am I just like we had sloppy joes for supper tonight, and it's like I like sloppy joes, but like let's be honest,
Mhm.
I'm not sitting there savoring the sloppy joe.
Yeah.
I'm kind of just like, I got the meat on the bun, and I'm just like, you know, basically jamming it in my face hole. I'm not being super mindful of that. But if it's something, a little more special, I guess,
Mhm.
I'm gonna approach that in a much more intentional way. I don't know. It's like
Yeah. And
I've often found like I draw a lot of comparisons between eating and playing video games. I don't know, like,
w well,
is
let
that
me
just because I'm
I think
fat?
I like food, okay?
I like to
Jack
eat.
Black from, School of Rock. Yeah, there you go, there you go. Is that a crime? Anyways, I think too, there's a few different, there's a few things kinda coming against us, if we can play the victim here for a second. That's not what I mean. But there's hype from players wanting to play the latest game. I think from like games journalism or something like that. They want to be on the front lines and telling you about the latest game. And I think the manufacturers of games, put it that way, whether
Hmm.
that's publisher,
The
developer,
industry.
all that. Yeah, yes, the industry wants to be putting out new games uh ultimately to put out another product for you to consume. And so there are these elements that are pushing you towards consuming the next product. Whether sometimes there are stories that want to be told, and so you see um, I think of something like God of War 2018 and then God of War Ragnarok. Like, that's a continuing story. There was a reason to put out a sequel to that. But then you take a look at maybe some other games, maybe something like a Spider-Man and a Miles Morales and a Spider-Man 2. Like, was it really an artistic choice to put out these other games, or was it more of a, hey, we need to put out another game in this property, this one sold well, let's do these kinds of things. um and stepping back and looking at these games more objectively with um with the ability of having that time separation. I think we can look at things more objectively. It's kind of the same deal, if you want to go to any of the games that have yearly installments, right? Are you really, the latest Black Ops 6 or whatever came out, is it really an artistic choice that they had to put out this game? Or was it more of, hey, we're going to tweak some stuff and then release this simply to, capture the audience, to make more money for our property? And so, again, viewing this as an art form, and hey, we also acknowledge not all games are art or any kind of high art or aspiring to
Hmm.
be any kind of high art. Okay, not all games are that, but there are some. And we highly treasure those things, and we want to. That's part of what we do. We want to be intentional about viewing these things, about taking in these messages in the way that it communicates, because we do think there's something special about the medium of video games. And so I think the way that this ties back to into the backlog is really seeking out the games that have stood the test of time. So while we have on the one hand these elements pushing against us, like, hey, buy the latest thing, but also, hey, the latest things are getting more and more expensive. I do think that friction allows us to say that, hey, now is a really good time to focus on the games that we already have, even if that means like, hey, replaying a gem that you haven't played in a while. Um, and there's a number of reasons. So I think there's all those reasons go into why now is a great time to play your backlog and to prioritize your backlog over the newest games. The other thing that came to mind for me as we were kicking around this topic, this idea of why now would be the best time to play games on your backlog, is I think because of the proliferation of um, forwards compatible systems, or the way that now we can either take a game that we have in our backlog and play the definitive version of it, right? No
Mm.
extra. You don't need to add extra DLC. You don't need to play this game as it's being released. The bugs have been patched out, things like that. You can play definitive versions, but also there are games being remade. I talked about how I just picked up Dragon Quest III HD 2D. There are ways to play this on modern consoles. And then I think of even like the Switch 2 upgrades, and I that's just what comes to mind for me, because I'm thinking of like the Xenoblade Chronicles series and how they're having Switch 2 upgrades. Like that is the best way to play those games as they are released. And I'm excited to replay those games because of the ability, the upgrades, and things like that. Even if it's cosmetic, but it runs better, and I can experience these games again. So I think now is a great time to focus on your backlog and to play the best version of the game on your backlog as well. Because by and large, these things are easily accessible to get the best versions of these different games, whether that is looking back and buying, Persona 3 FES versus the original Persona, or whether it's even more recent and playing Persona 3 Reload, and experiencing the game that way. So I think there's a lot of good things about playing backlog games even today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like I said earlier. It's like there are like sort of like the physical, like kind of what you're hitting on is like there's like sort of almost like wisdom kind of principles here,
Mhm,
and I don't want to get too crazy with this, but it's like it's almost like, hey, like by prioritizing what you already have, right? Like one, and you brought up like the Xenoblade Chronicles remake, or not remakes, the patches that are coming, that
mhm,
are the Switch 2 versions, and they're going to be like the
mhm,
upgrade paths and all that. There's like by waiting, you can play an optimal version, you
mhm.
know. Like this is the best way to play these games. And so it's kind of like almost that thing where yeah, and a lot of times like you get the game early on and it's like buggy and all the other things. It's like so like again, sort of like this I don't know, give modern games time to get to the finished state,
Right.
like kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
Um, so like I said, the primary lens for me in thinking about this is like by engaging in this discipline, it generates contentment. Like it's like because again, it's like you're not feeding that desire to sort of like, because I think that's like the novelty of it. It's like the new and
Mhm,
shiny, or just like the new experience or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but yeah, like I said, I think there's just a variety of reasons, and I think like it's just like that's sort of all the different reasons that kind of are lending itself to like saying like now is like literally the best time to do this, because like in some ways it's more expensive than it's ever been. You have less
mhm,
spending power than you ever have. Um, Also, like in a world and all the systems that sort of make up like modern living, right? It's like there's this constant discontentment that's being pushed on you, where this is a way that you can kind of push back against consumerism. You can push back against sort of like mere acquisition. You can engage in a little bit of
mhm,
discipline, and you can engage in maturity. And if you do this, there's actually like rewards for doing this. Like those games will go,
mhm,
like games you might really want but you waited on will go on sale. Games that you really want but maybe weren't in the most optimal condition. They'll get patched, they'll get fixed, they'll get better.
Mhm.
Like, because how many games too like come out and the initial version is like, it's good, but it's not where it needs to be. And then it's like, 6 months to a year later, like there's been some significant patches and the game is transformed. It's like it's completely different.
Mhm.
And so it's like I said, not only are there sort of, again, these sort of like, I don't want to say that they're heavily spiritual, but like these kind of like these spiritual truths that you can sort of draw out, and then again engaging in sort of a light discipline, and there's rewards for it. And it's just
Mhm.
like, yeah, just now is the best time. Like,
Yeah.
it's, you probably like, again, the people listening to this, they probably have a ton of stuff. Their money doesn't go as far. Like, what are you waiting for? Like, I don't know. What are you waiting for? Don't let
Yeah.
your backlog dreams be dreams.
Mhm. Just do it. Just
Just
go
take it.
for it.
Just
You
take
can
it.
do
Just
it.
go for it.
Yeah. And I think for anyone, I mean, I'm not sure. Hey, we welcome everyone to listen to what we have to say, but I would think by and large the people who are listening already have an extensive backlog. But even if you don't, I think these are also metrics, or these are reasons why maybe you should look into playing older games. You mentioned things like sales and things like that. That cultivate ultimately we want to cultivate contentment. And that means not being caught up in the hype. And I do want to give its due that, hey, there are reasons to buy games day one, whether that is that you want to support a developer, by
Hmm.
buying a new game, whether
Yeah.
that's if it's like a multiplayer game or something like that, and you want to be in with the community as it grows, uh, or something along those lines. There are reasons to get new games. I'm not saying don't ever get new games, but you were talking about how there are rewards for waiting, and we want to be wise. We don't want to make snap decisions. We don't want to be ruled by our passions. Is really what it is, and especially with something that is recreational, especially with something that is entertainment. We don't just want to be led around by what we feel all the time, and we really want to think through these things and engage in the best possible ways. And yes, I get that sometimes that means, hey, just play some arcadey game for a while. Um, I'm not dismissing any of that. But I would also, I mean, part of what we do with this podcast is to look at the best that video games has to offer, and present those things as well. And I think this is just another avenue with which we can even start to show some of some, like you mentioned, kind of spiritual maturity with our contentment before God. That, hey, He allows us to do these things, to spend our time this way, and so we want to make the most of it. But also the contentment with the things that He has already given us, and not squandering those things and just kind of stacking them up. Again, I think of myself and my physical games that I have in my basement, as opposed to games that I've actually played and really enjoyed and things like that. So I would encourage the same for you as well, to think through, why do you have your backlog? What are some of the best games there? And focus in on those. And because now is the best time. Go make your dreams a reality. Go play your backlog. Do that before you pick up that new shiny game. So I think that's about all we had in terms of the main topic, unless you had anything else you wanted to cover, Nate.
Not really.
Okay.
The only thing I wanted to say was like, I am fading. Like, I am fighting off the sleepies at this point in time. So
Nice.
yeah,
Nice.
I think like, I just, the only thing I wanted to say is like, just given all of these different factors, it just makes sense. It just
Mhm.
makes sense to do it now.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it, man. Well, hey guys, if you have something to add to this conversation, maybe you have a counterpoint. Sure, we'd love to hear those. But also, if you've got other reasons that we didn't touch on, why now is the best time to focus on your backlog and why you should start taking a look at that. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Reach out to us. We're in a bunch of different places on the internet, but you can find those places at linktree.com/the backlog breakdown. Particularly our Discord. We do some chatting it up in there. In fact, we even your previous bite size you recorded kind of came out of some conversations in the Discord.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd highly recommend that you do that. If you like what you hear, give us a like, share us with your friends, leave us a review, do all those nice things. We would enjoy that if you think that that's a good use of your time. Before we head out, one of our final forms, one of the things that we like to do, because we have this community of people around us that we enjoy, is to give some shout outs. So Nate, do you have a shout out that you'd like to throw out there?
Yeah. So I talked about like having the conversation with Turkey and then with Fake
Mm-hmm.
Nate. But also E-Rice from the Discord jumped in, and he's a buddy
Nice.
of Jimicus, and he and I got to chat a
Cool.
little bit, and it was really cool to sort of like catch up and get to know him. So yeah, shout out to E-Rice.
Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Hmm.
Yeah, some of the things that come to mind for me, it's nothing that big. We were talking actually before we started recording of a video that Paul sent us, so those are always fun when we get those. But I think also it's just been fun, kind of vicariously getting to see some of the stuff that Porcho has been into because he just bought a vinyl player, and so he's been showing
He's
some music.
he's just turning into a proper little snob, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, eating his Vegemite, on toast and listening
With
to
avocado,
yeah. Oh, with avocado
and it's
too? Is that a thing?
artisanal. I don't know, dude.
The
Vegemite
sourdough.
is
Yeah,
gross.
yeah. It has to be on.
Artisanal sourdough. Yeah, you probably
Yeah.
hand churn the butter.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's hard to do it when you're upside down. Anyways, so Porcho, shout out to you, sir. It's just fun. It's just fun seeing what you're into. That's another valuable member of the Playwell Network. The stuff that he's got going on there. So, all right, dude. Well, we've come to talk about why you should beat down your backlog, why we think it's a good thing, and why we want to be intentional in building contentment. I think we've done the stuff that we wanted to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and just sort of on our way out the door here, like if you guys
Mhm.
like what we're doing here and you are looking for a way to go a little bit above and beyond, like you've done the
Oh,
rating
that's
and the
right.
reviewing, the sharing and the caring, and you're either just want to sort of like throw us a couple of bones as a sign of appreciation, like as a tip jar, or if you're looking for a way to partner with us, we do have a Patreon. Every patron or brochacho, as we like to call them, gets early and uncut access to each and every episode. They get access to the Brohang, which is like it's a mixed bag. It's just like sometimes you're gonna get semi-serious stuff, sometimes you're gonna get kind of stupid stuff, sometimes you're gonna get a little spicy stuff. You just never know. You never know. Um, but so you've got that going for that. You get a special role in the Discord, which gives you a little bit more access to me and Josh. And each patron actually gets to help us shape the future of the podcast by nominating games for us to play and, offering topic recommendations for us to cover. Also, our patrons get to sort of look at our calendar and schedule when we actually keep up with it. And so that they can kind of weigh in. And occasionally they can, say like, hey, I like to jump on this episode. And so like, yeah, there are perks. Like I said, if you like what we're doing here and you're looking for a way to, partner with us or to encourage us, that's an easy way to do it. So, and that's in the link tree. So yeah, but Josh, we have done the things. We have had the conversations. I am getting to be a sleepy boy and it's time to land this plane. So until next time, what should they do?
Guys, do it. Keep beating down your backlogs, and we'll keep breaking down the benefits.
Howdy, folks. I'm Mark, host of the podcast called Quick Play, subtitled Short Talks About Video Games. It's a little bit of time each week to talk about something that we're into. Video games. I bring on all sorts of smart, witty, talented guests to ask questions and make connections on trends in games, the industry, particular games themselves, anything that comes to mind. It's lean, green, and never really all that mean. And ultimately, it's a launch pad for you sweet little baby listener, to ask questions and make connections in your own conversations. And if you just got here by skipping 30 seconds ahead, then you'll love Quick Play. It's a little podcast trying to ask big questions. Listen wherever you listen to podcasts or watch on YouTube. See you there.